So I'm here with Matt Radford from All About iPhone, that great sister site,
Afternoon.
who has been trying, despite years of iPhone ownership, a Nokia N97 Mini. Now I'm very eager to find out. We will find out in text on the site, but can you give us your baseline summary? What did you think of the 97 Mini?
Well, I liked it. I thought it was a very capable phone. I think there were a lot of things about it that I could recommend. Um, there it goes,
Starting
booting
out
up.
right on cue.
Um, yeah, no, it really gets the feel of there's an awful lot packed into this. Somewhat let down by a clunky user interface. So, well, not clunky. I mean, it's better than the ones I've used before, but there's just some touches that I think that could make it so much better.
Yeah.
So for now, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who doesn't know their stuff as far as phones go, but I would recommend it to someone who wants to do anything with their phone, basically. Yeah, absolutely, and that's really what I was going for here. I wanted to try and take a look at if I was to ditch my iPhone, heaven forbid, uh, and switch over to this N97 Mini, then could I do effectively what I do on my iPhone? And I decided to limit it to just the first page of my iPhone home screen because otherwise I could be there all day.
Yeah.
And so I thought, could I take what I do on my iPhone and transpose it onto my N97 Mini fairly effectively? And the answer was, with a fair bit of setup, as you mentioned, yes, I generally could. So I was very pleased with it.
Did you miss the 10,000 or 90,000 applications from the iPhone App Store?
Well, yes and no. One of the apps I use every day is an app called Byline, which interfaces with my Google Reader account. And I do now, I'd say, the vast majority of my reading on my iPhone.
Yeah.
And my first task was to see if I could find a Google Reader application. And after a bit of googling, I found a Symbian Guru review, I think, of G Reader or preview rather,
Yeah.
and went off to the Ovi store. And after a bit of a torturous setup process, which I'll go into at length, but if you've seen the really mobile video about it, you'll know what I'm talking about. After I got through all that, I was left with a fantastic Google Reader app on my N97 Mini, and I have to say it's probably better than the one I have on my iPhone. It's that good.
Brilliant. But so when you were going back to the Ovi store, you were infested by Hannah Montana ringtones, were you?
No, I managed to avoid those, but it was a case of being asked to do things again and again, and I didn't suffer any dodgy downloads, but I did find that the whole setup and user friendliness of it was lacking.
Yeah.
Like when you go to sign up, you have to enter a captcha to make sure that you're not an automated robot. But then when you go to enter the captcha, it goes to a screen where you can't see the captcha that you're trying to enter. So you have to try and remember
Yes.
what's in there. So just little things like that that could be improved. And I know I'm fine with that, but I know someone who finds phones difficult would throw their hands up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's fair to say that the once you get set up in any of these systems and it knows all your information, subsequent purchases and installations are somewhat smoother, but it's still not as smooth as the iPhone App Store.
Absolutely. As I said, for me, the iPhone App Store is great because it just interfaces with one of my iTunes accounts. Piece of cake, no problems at all. If I was to hand this over to my dad, who had to go through the Ovi Store sign-up process, he wouldn't.
Yeah, you do it for him.
Yeah, for me, no problem, but for him,
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
Let me see the configurability of it, and having a today screen again. Very nice having a today screen. Everything is there in one place, and now it updates live. Very nice. And also being able to install apps. I wouldn't want to buy a device these days that you couldn't install apps on because you get your vanilla device and then you want to extend on that
Yeah.
in terms of your own preferences.
Well, that's the smartphone ethos, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was nice to still keep that moving to another device. For example, I've tried the Samsung Jet, for example, and trying to install anything on that. It's horrible, really horrible.
Presumably that's just proprietary Jet extensions in Java, is it?
Pretty much, yeah. So it's not a real smartphone, but
Yeah.
that's my other touchscreen trial recently. I don't think and I might get flamed for this, but I don't think a physical keyboard actually made much difference to me.
Okay.
What was important was that I had a QWERTY keyboard, because I've grown very used to having a QWERTY on the iPhone, which is very nice. I was pretty fast with T9, but since I've gone to QWERTY, I find I really like having that. The physical nature of the N97 Mini's keyboard didn't really make a lot of difference. The fact that it was QWERTY was the thing that made the difference.
Yeah.
And I found that I could pretty quickly type out a message on that. I could type things in pretty easily. One thing I did notice was, and this isn't necessarily a keyboard feature, but when I was filling in forms, on the iPhone, when you fill in a form field, you get to tap next and it goes on to the next field. With the N97 Mini, you have to actually tap in the field every time, and it's slightly distracting,
Yeah.
I think, and breaks up the flow of what you're doing. Maybe I'm betraying my platform preferences here, but I find that there's a difference between multitasking applications and multitasking in terms of what you're actually doing, I think. Because I find myself being able to quite easily multitask on the iPhone, because you switch between things and they more or less left in the state in which they were running before when you switch back to them. So I found that multitasking on the N97 Mini was useful, but I didn't find the way I worked changing all that much, because those apps were already open in the background. I didn't feel that it added much to it. Saying that, the lack of multitasking on the iPhone means there are things you can't do, such as streaming music in the background with most apps. So, was it a positive? Yeah, I'd say, would I want it on my iPhone? Absolutely. Did I found it made much difference on the N97 Mini, having that capability? Not in the time that I used it. Maybe if I was to delve deeper into the device and sync my user experience into that in terms of using it day to day, nothing else, maybe then it would make a difference. But I don't think it changed the way I worked that much.
It's rather ironic, really, that the iPhone has some fabulous games, but you can't multitask or switch between them. The Symbian platform has wonderful multitasking and no games.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Finding decent games, say for the Symbian system, is very difficult. Whereas I get bombarded with pretty fantastic games every day.
Yeah.
And I found one recently called Orbital, which is just so simple, but great. And I couldn't imagine, with the responsiveness of the M97 screen, being able to play that in the same way. Yeah. So I think that was an important factor when I was considering the phone. I would say the only reason that the iPhone doesn't have multitasking at the moment is that Apple believes it would degrade the user experience in terms of chewing up memory and eating up battery life. And until they can control that to a degree that it doesn't degrade your battery life or slow down your phone too much, I think the iPhone won't see multitasking. Saying that, with a faster processor, I don't see any reason why the iPhone shouldn't have multitasking in the next release. I mean, you do get multitasking on iPhones now. It's a fallacy to say there isn't any multitasking.
I know.
But you also get multitasking on jailbroken iPhones. Yeah. And there is a great app that's just been released called Pro Switcher, which, if you've got a 3GS, multitasking is just seamless. I understand why they've done it.
Yeah.
I would like to have full multitasking on my iPhone. Would it change the way I work? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I think it's only really if you're a heavy gamer that you notice the fact that there isn't multitasking, because you're faced with 30-second application startups, which you don't get for your typical Tube app or Byline, or presume that starts in a couple of seconds.
That's true. Yeah, it's very
It's just the games that are really hit. For example,
I have played with an Android phone. Yeah, I've played with the Samsung Galaxy and the HTC Magic, both of which were very nice. And what appealed to me about those was the fact that you can do anything with them, especially once you've got root on the device. You could do an awful lot. Obviously, the iPhone 3GS will be right up there for me. I went and had a play with an N900 the other day, which I really quite liked. I can see the power of the platform. Again, it's not something I recommend to somebody who wasn't a competent technical user.